I'm going to show you a tool called the SnapGrid tool, and let's start out with the documentation here briefly. It's a tool that provides a layer with grid equally spaced points and some drawing functionality, and also a UI, a user interface that will let you control this grid. Let's pop over in the map and have a look at it. It's this button here. Click it, and here you are. You have a grid which you can use for drawing stuff that will snap to the grid. Let's check out with the polygon tool here instead. You can sense how it is currently snapping to the grid. And the grid is currently rotated 45 degrees. You can use the slider here to change that. Or you can just type in any value that you prefer. Or even use the arrow keys to move it gradually. Let's say we are not happy with the number of points, we want to increase the number of points. Here we are, or the spacing between, which is by default 100. I'm using the arrow key now to expand that. We can go on drawing. You may notice also that the grid moves when you move the map, but actually the origin for the grid is the same. Now let's say you are not quite happy with where the points are right now. You want them to be, you want all the points to be, say, 1 meter or 5 meters further to the right. You press this button and you can see how the grid is currently moving down and up. And of course I can also type in a value like this, or I can use the arrow keys to gradually move the grid. If I press the deletion button here, the geometries that I just drew will be deleted, and I can start over. Normally when I close the tool, my working geometry will disappear, but let's say I want to keep it, I can also press this button. I close the tool, but I keep the geometry. So the geometry will now be available in the application's user layer, so that another tool can take over this geometry and interact with it. Let's take a brief look at the documentation again. There's a whole bunch of configuration options. You can say whether or not you want to actually render the user interface and the control panel with the drawing controls on it. And you can also adjust the snapping tolerance, make it a bit lower, for instance, and the default rotation value that you have the first time you start up, the default spacing, and the default maximum number of points. Let's just change some of the configuration. Here's the configuration file, which is loaded by this page, and this is the tool with its various configuration options. And let's say that I don't want to render the control panel at all. I put in false there, and I don't want point, I only want polygon drawing. Snapping tolerance, we could change that from the default value, which is 15, to say 5. And the initial rotation could be 15 degrees, and the spacing could be 150. We pop over again to the map, and we reload the page. When I press it now, you see that the initial rotation value has changed, and the spacing has changed according to my configuration, and there's no longer any control panel up here with drawing controls. The drawing control, the polygon drawing is enabled, but that's the only one. And you can also see how the snapping is now much less aggressive because we changed the snapping tolerance.